I'm thinking from an economies of scale point, you don't actually get to a positive gross margin until somewhere around 10,000. You probably don't get good margins until you're selling at least, 50,000 a year.
There were a total of, okay, so we're way, I'm guessing the United States. Perfect. Okay. So in 2020, let's use 2019 because 2020 was the COVID. 2019, there were 270, roughly, call it 260,000 semis sold. Okay. So we were way over 260,000 semis sold. Okay. So, and Freightliner was the largest one at 100,000 per year.
I think those are the big Class 8 trucks, but that is what we care about. So I think the other number included a lot of smaller trucks.
Makes sense. Perfect. So 100,000 per. So can we assume that that Tesla will reach quote unquote market dominance when it comes to how many semis they sell per year, like they have in the EV market? Do you think that's a fair assumption that eventually Tesla will get to 100,000 semis per year? Is that fair? Nods. Yeah. Okay. So 100,000 is 100% margin essentially. Let's think about it that way. So how long do you think it's going to take Tesla to reach 100,000 units per year? What kind of ramp? Like 5 years?
It's a lot of cells is the thing. It's not a lot of units, but it's a lot of cells.
Okay. So let's say 2030. If you just joined us on the live stream, we're doing a live model of the semi. So 100,000. Let me go ahead and now you can look at my not very great Excel skills, just somewhat average. I'm just going to keep it at 200,000 here, and then we'll change it. So we'll change it. So in the chat, do drop in your recommendations of what these numbers you think they should be. Is that too aggressive, y'all think? 2024, they'll do about 17,000 semis. It's just, this is how modeling works in a way, just a rough one.
I thought the 100 to 17,000 is too big a jump.
70,000 to 100,000 is too large?
I think they'll do more than 100 though in 2023. Yeah, I'd say, if we get 1,000 in 2023.
Okay.
I'd say
we'll probably get like 10 next year or this year, hopefully.
Right. So let's say like,
I'd say 12,500 year, that 2024.
Okay. Then 23,000, 2025. Is that fair? Because that's kind of the S curve, right? We started hitting the S curve a little bit and we start writing it up. Okay. So ASP of 200,000 conservatively. Do we think 40% margin is realistic at full bore?
Yeah.
Should be, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So if they sell 100,000 semis at an ASP of 200,000 per unit, a margin of 40% without any FSD, that's $8 billion in gross profit. Okay. If they say add FSD, let's just say $15,000 per truck. I'm just using that as a price now. We can kind of talk through the methodology there. The gross profit from FSD will be 1.5 billion because it's basically 100% profit because it's software. That's how I think about it.
Are you assuming basically 100% take rate too?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think they buy the semi unless this thing's going to drive itself eventually. Because what the hell is the point of buying it in the first place?
Yeah, I agree.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the total gross profit is $9.5 billion, which essentially falls to the bottom line because of Tesla's operational leverage, right? So the margin they would earn from the truck should fall directly to the bottom line before taxes, right? If we add a PE multiple of say 20 on that $9.5 billion of gross profit, this is without taxes hitting the line, right? And the taxes will obviously bring this number down, but a 20 PE would add about $190 billion to the market cap. A 50 PE would add roughly 475 billion to the market cap, and 100 PE would add about $1 trillion to the market cap. So 100 semis sold per year, which is equal to the largest semi manufacturer in the US. The largest semi manufacturer in the US right now, Freightliner, Class 8 truck, 2019 volumes was 100,000 per year, which is pre-COVID. I think that's a safe assumption to make, especially as we go in towards more e-commerce. There's going to be more semis. So if we assume that Tesla gets as big as Freightliner, they are asking about $200,000 per unit, sell at a 40% margin. and they add on $15,000 of FSD on top of the truck, they'll add $9.5 billion of profit to their bottom line. Okay, what do you guys want to change about this?
I would just say on the demand side of things, people who might be skeptical of their ability to sell 100,000 in the year 2030, governments are basically going to mandate, if the supply is there, that people are buying these electric trucks because it's a huge carbon emission source. So yeah, like if they can produce 100,000 in 2030, they will 100% sell them.
Okay.
How about
if you read through some of the comments, Richard? Go ahead. Yeah, share your thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to say, how about if you reduce the numbers by, let's say, 10%, but increase the ASP to 300,000?
So instead of getting to 100,000, we're saying we're going to do 10% less in volume, but we're going to be selling it at 300,000 instead of 200,000 at 40% margin. You end up adding $12 billion to the bottom line instead of $8 billion. So 50% more. What other, so, and it was somebody in the comments that said that they think 40% margin is too high. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, because these vehicles, you think about the 4680 is going to be a very efficient platform, and then you're utilizing a lot of parts that you already have in your supply chain to build this out. So a lot of Model 3 parts are going into this thing, as Elon stated previously when they were making this thing. So, and typically, let me just do a Google search and see how much a semi truck usually makes in margin. Go ahead, Hans. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was curious about that same thing. Like, what are Freightliner's gross margins? But when you think about that, on a $200,000 vehicle, that's a cost of production of $120,000. I'm pretty sure that Tesla can produce that for less than $120,000. Like, that's the sale price of a Model X. Right.
And that's the one thing to, like, this is where a lot of the, I don't know if any of y'all have been in a semi truck before, but these are a conglomeration of a bunch of it's just random pieces thrown together to make this thing happen. There's not much vertical integration in making a semi truck. There's like probably the least amount of vertical integration I've ever seen in any vehicle ever. So the opportunity for margin in this industry is gigantic. At least I believe.
Does Freightliner have an electric division?
Does Freightliner have EV trucks? Oh, there we go. Freightliner. Oh, look at that. Well, where'd they go? Okay. Cascadia and the EM2. On highway, 320 to 470 horsepower, 155, 220 or 2030 typical range. So about half of the Tesla Semi. 80% and 90-minute recharge. And then the EM2 is 230 target range. I love how they just all have blue lines because they really want to make it obvious it's electric, y'all. 80% in 90 minutes.
I love how they don't care about aerodynamics. Yeah, the same trucks that we've been making for the last 30 years. That's
is there a price?
What we need.
Is there a price on these?
Let's see.
I'll get a quote.
By the way, thank you for everybody who has joined us on this live stream. Really appreciate. No, they're not being open about. I'm guessing this is their big daddy. Look at how old this thing looks, and they have it being sold as new. Like, it tells you just how much innovation is going into the space with the Semi, right? Like this is literally something they're looking to sell right now, and this is what it looks like. Somebody said you should compare to Volvo trucks. Okay, so this one's got 223,000 miles, 174,000. Let's see what kind of stats it's got. It's got air ride suspension, which I'm sure the Semi has. It's got a sleeper, which is like that. Like, this is where people can sleep back here for those that are not familiar. It is used, so it's not new. It's a tandem axle, which I'm guessing it's the double wheel thing back there. Does it say how much it can haul? It's got to be 80,000 pounds, right? It has to be. Yeah, so a used Volvo of similar specs to the Tesla Semi sells for about $174,000, which would make sense that the Tesla Semi brand new is probably closer to 200 to 250,000 based on this, without sort of like with similar specs. Is that a fair statement? You guys think?
I was going to say, but this is not electric, so
it is not electric. So it might be an additional premium.
Yeah, I would think. Plus, the 223,000 miles got to have some value also.
For sure. Some sort of depreciation. I mean, these things hold their value extremely well because they have a gigantic amount of utility. But I guess the thought process is that, okay. So to me, my takeaway here is that anywhere between 200 and 300,000 is a realistic price for minimum 200,000. Minimum 200,000 is what I'm arriving at. So this is a very
we
conservative
see that
price.
with EVs that the total cost of ownership is usually lower than gas, but a higher percentage of that is in the upfront cost. And so you should expect the initial sale price to be higher on an EV just from that factor alone.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, and just again, because it's electric, it should last a lot longer than the gas-powered one. So it should have a longer life.
Yeah. Okay.
And believe me, fleet operators are thinking in terms of total cost of ownership. They don't
100%. 100%. Yeah, because you think about if you're a fleet operator and you're spending how much on diesel, right? So what's it? Diesel, how big is a Class 8 truck gas tank?
No,
150 gallons.
Is, what's the gas mileage that they get? It's really low.
I think like 4 miles per gallon, something like that.
Yeah.
5.2. And so how much is diesel per gallon?
What did you say? 320?
Way more.
You're obviously not in California.
No, this is Texas.
Oh.
We actually have decent prices.
Let's say $4. Our current average, 4.43. Okay. So $4.43 per gallon, 5.2 miles per gallon, and then average Class 8 truck miles per year, 62,700. But let's see, 62,700. Okay, so we're gonna do 62,700 miles. We get 5.2 miles per gallon, so it's 12,000 gallons at $4.43 per gallon. So the average truck's expenditure on just fuel is $53,000 per truck per year. And so electricity costs are roughly going to be what? Let's just conservatively say 1/3. Is that a fair number?
I think we can back into it. Just say, basically a megawatt hour is the pack and it has 500 miles of range.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can figure out how many watts of power that we need.
Okay, so help me with that. So 500 miles per range. What's the efficiency on? So how big of a
megawatt
pack?
hour is 1,000 kilowatt hours. So you basically got 2 kilowatts per mile there.
2 kilowatts per mile. Yep. And what's the average cost of a kilowatt?
That's a great Google question.
13 cents? 13 cents. So we'll do 13 cents times 2 kilowatts per mile times 62,000 miles, right?
Yep.
$16,000. So
That's
you
like
would
less than a
save, $37,000 saved in energy costs per truck. So you could theoretically bake this into the price of the truck, because then the assumption is you would save a ton of money from everything else from operation, right? Mm-hmm. Safety.
Yeah, that doesn't even
maintenance.
factor in maintenance, which is a huge expense on these trucks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you save more? Because that one you looked at, that Volvo truck you looked at was a 2022, 223,000 miles on it. And I think you calculated 67,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
So, you're probably going to run them as much as you can.
It depends. So the ones that have the high mileage, those are doing your long distance routes. There's a lot of trucks that do like more local delivery type stuff. And they're running a specific route that it takes them a lot of time, but it's not necessarily that far in distance. And so I think that's why you're seeing the average on the mileage be in that 60,000-ish range. It's just a variety of different use cases for that size truck that are not all doing overland routes.
So is this all tire related though? Tire, tubes, liners, and this is just all tire. Okay, sorry, excuse me. Got it. So 12% goes away. Brakes should go away too because of regen, right? Theoretically, in some form. Expendable items should go away. Exhaust system goes away. Fuel system goes away. That remains. Okay, so roughly 50% of your maintenance costs go away. Is that a fair statement? Okay. Average cost of maintenance on a semi truck. Just give me a freaking number. $15,000 per year. Okay, so $7,000 of maintenance costs per year, and life. So what's life of semi truck? 10 to 15 years. So $70,000 saved over the course of the semi. So
I think we'll be on the high side because it's electric, it should last on the higher side.
Yeah, it should go 20 miles. Should we go 20 years instead of 10 years? Okay. So at least call it $100,000 saved per year conservatively from the maintenance perspective over the life of the semi truck.
We do have to factor in battery life, whatever we can't basically go beyond, 750,000 miles. So that's a little over 10 years. At 62, that's like 12 years.
I mean, unless Tesla figures out how to have a battery that lasts significantly longer than that,
structural. Right? Yeah, it'll be a structural battery pack. There will be no battery swap. The battery will die and you'll recycle the thing.
But
or you'll use it for shorter routes. And I guess that is a real possibility that you change the application from a longer distance. Like if you're only using, say you've got 75% of your initial battery capacity, and you just put it on a lower distance route where it still works fine. So
makes sense.
I guess potentially it could extend it. There's
still a ton of utility for the vehicle, even in a like dead battery scenario, that's what you're gonna call it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so then I think the price of $200,000 to $300,000 per semi per year is I think that's super valid, especially over time. 90,000 units sold per year would be close to or at the biggest semi truck manufacturer in the United States today. 40% margin, I think. Go ahead, Hans.
I was just going to say, we'll be, at that point in time, we'll be trying to convert an entire fleet of gas trucks into electric trucks. And the demand will literally be infinite.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that one of those documents you reviewed that said there was 2 million of those trucks on the road currently. Not that they were sold, but 2 million. So you got to replace them.
The fleet.
Yeah, you got to replace the entire fleet.
So, and then 40% margin, we all feel like is a legitimate number for this thing because it's going to be the thought process here is that the legacy semi-truck business is a gigantic mess just by looking at, what was that one new truck that looked like it was built in 1950? The assumption here is that these things can be built much more vertically and much more efficiently, especially with Tesla's manufacturing prowess. So I feel comfortable. Let's just go like this. Minus 20, 0, 10, 20, 30, 35, 38. Let's just use that as a ramp. So I do think 40% more.
Even if that was generous, which I don't think it is, the way that you have FSD priced is ridiculously generous.
You know what? I agree.
Ridiculously conservative. They'll probably make, the biggest expense aside from fuel and trucking is the driver. And so if at any point along that path you eliminate the need for a driver, it's like an order of magnitude increase on the value of the vehicle.
Somebody said I would not add anything for FSD before 2026. Okay, that's okay. I don't mind doing that. But then, Richard said, but I would start
from
FSD
0 to infinite.
Yeah. So, do you think 50,000 per for FSD for a semi is legitimate? It has to be, right? Because if you don't need a driver,
like $70,000 a year, and that's for one truck driver. And some of these trucks are running multiple drivers.
Yeah, team trucks. Yep. But those team trucks, they make up but they make up the price anyway. That's the fleet owner makes up the price on that. Okay, so I think 50,000 is a very conservative number then, right? Is that a fair number? That's less than 1 year's worth of pay. Why wouldn't it be here? Because by here it should be solved, right? Okay, big numbers. Big numbers. So 90,000 semi-sold per year, 300,000 ASP, 40% margin. That's $10 billion of gross profit per year. Then you add full self-driving ASP at 50,000 per truck, 100% take rate. That's an additional $4.5 billion to the bottom line, totaling at $15 billion of gross profit per year. If you assume no tax hit from earnings for that part of the business, at a PE of 20, that's $306 billion of market cap. PE 50 is $765 billion. PE of 100, $1.5 trillion. So I think this is good.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if I'm buying a fleet of trucks and I'm buying it for the FSD on the come, I am going to buy it down. So I'm not going to wait till it's 50 grand. If I think it's coming and I'm buying the trucks,
Oh, sure.
I'll spend 20 for 3 years for nothing. I will do that. I'll save me money in the back end.
So what else can we turn around with this truck thing? I mean, I think to me, it seems like long term, the semi could very well add at least $300 billion of market cap to the company if this model works out. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of that, of course, hinges on FSD. But I do think Mayor Thacker is right that it should be, it's a very high value added vertical to get FSD working on. And a lot of it really is simpler. And I mean, that's even if they did one driver, there's the whole platoon trucking idea. And so even if you had an actual driver and then a platoon of robo semis behind them, following them to the destination, like that's fairly feasible from a software standpoint. But yeah, like a lot of this value does depend on FSD. And so like if you wanted to model it and say, okay, we're just going to take FSD revenue out, it's a lot lower. A large portion of almost a third of that revenue is that 50,000 100% take rate. So
yeah. Makes sense.
But I also believe that the sale price will be much higher. I know, especially down the road in 2030, 2029, because I just think there's be so much utility and value to the trucking companies that it still will be a great value for them.
Yeah, I think the total net cost of say $350,000 per truck does seem quite conservative long term if you can solve FSD. Like it seems. But it also could mean that, hey, listen, like we've commoditized a lot of this labor. So that's why everything is an age of abundance. It's because trucking is way cheaper now. That could be another variable too, right? So it's interesting. So I would say 300 billion of market cap added to the company within the context of today's world of we're still going to value labor quite expensively in some realms, I think makes sense. But if we go towards the age of abundance, it could just be $1 billion. But all of us can afford everything because everything is plentiful, right? So there's a lot of variables there.
I would think the PE ratio of 20 is pretty low too, because it's going to be it would make the PEG ratio too great or too low, I guess.
This will be a company that's building bots by this time as well.